Welcome back to Crownspiracies, the podcast where pageantry gets personal. Each week we're unwrapping the sparkle, the stories, and the secrets behind the crown. I'm Katie, and I'm here with Chrisanne, and this week we are diving into the Miss USA reset. No more secrets, no more shadiness. The system has come out with a total new brand, rebrand, refresh with new ownership, which is super exciting, super refreshing. So we know we talked about this a couple episodes ago, just our initial thoughts on it when everything first came out, and it still wasn't really confirmed. But now that it's fully confirmed and it has been made official that Thomas, whatever his name, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, I'm not even going to attempt, is now the owner of the Miss USA system. We're going to dive deeper into our thoughts on everything and all of the back end, I'm going to call them promises for right now until they're proven otherwise, but all the promises that have been made as far as what direction the system is taking and moving forward in the future. So, Christine, you want to kick us off with just breaking it down for anyone that's unaware of what is changing and what Tom has come out with saying is going to be the biggest focus with the rebrand?
So I'm just glad that Miss Universe confirmed what Tom put out there. The only thing that's kind of going on right now that I think is a little shady is Layla's holding the social media pages hostage, Miss USA and Miss Teen USA. She has not given them over to Tom so that he can properly advertise because Miss USA was announced to be in October. We're trying to get tickets. As long as we can get tickets, we're taking the girls to go for IUM to go see Miss USA, but I need to get my hands on some tickets because I do want to see this in person for myself.
It's going to be interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, give it up first of all. Give it up. Like you've
Yeah.
already put this you put the reputation of Miss USA in the toilet. Give him the social media handle so he can properly advertise. The only thing that also is kind of odd to me, this is like the first time ever, and it's I think like 8 titles on the teen and 8 titles for the Miss are being appointed right now, which
Saw that.
like
And with that, there's no residency requirement. It's open to anybody, which I think is pretty bold considering that. I mean, if I was a contestant in other states where I had to either work, live, or go to school and have to follow that residency requirement, honestly, I'd be pretty pissed. I'd be pretty pissed that somebody's just getting to walk in from wherever, whoever, represent a state that they have more than likely no connection to, and be able to represent Miss USA confident, like represent that same at Miss USA confidently. I'd be pretty upset if I was another state title holder.
for sure. For sure. I'm really curious as to how they're going to do that and who's going to be selected. I know they're having like a crowning ceremony for those girls at Miss USA. But it feels icky, and I also feel bad for the title holders who are giving up titles. Like you're just done. You don't get a farewell. Um Not really the way that anyone wants to end their year. Especially at Miss USA. You know, things happen all the time. I know that for us, for example, we appointed like Ohio and Kentucky this year, but and we used to have a state pageant, but um that's due to like interest in the area and finding a proper place to have that pageant. Miss USA, there's just 8 pageants they did not schedule. And again, had Layla stepped down earlier and this transition happened sooner, it could have been maybe something that they were able to do. Even if it was holding an event with clustered states like other systems do, where it's like 6 states in one
Yep.
pageant, that would have been better than what happened. So here we are. But
Yeah.
yeah, I found out on social media. It was sent to me 875 times because for some reason people love sending me that stuff. I think it's the podcast now because everyone wants us to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I heard about it because you sent it to me and I was like, oh, geez. So I didn't know about the social media thing. That's crazy. I mean, if you're gonna, the thing that bothers me the most is if you were really, at least from my opinion, if you were really in it for the right reasons as far as being a director and an owner, if you were truly in it for the benefit of helping women grow as people and bettering themselves, wouldn't you want to do anything to support an organization that is trying to do that, whether you're a part of that as the owner or not? I mean, it should show right then and there that you're directorship and ownership is being taken away from you, that's a telltale sign to me. But if you really were invested in this for the right reasons, wouldn't you gracefully bow out and just kind of hand everything over? Why are you holding on to it? You've lost already, so let's just give it up. Let's give everything up all at the same time. Just wave the white flag and surrender, because it's not going to change anything. You're just now looking like, I'm sure you can all go fill in the blanks of where I'm going with this, of what she looks like holding on to the accounts, the social media accounts, without now being the owner. Just looks trashy. I mean, just give it up. That's really my opinion.
Yeah, it's very sad, but again, it's not something I'm surprised about. See, I'm cautiously optimistic about Tom, only because if anything else happens to this organization this time around, I really think it's going to die. And I don't
Yeah.
want that to happen. So I'm rooting for him. I am rooting for him. And it seems like he's building, and there's another thing I want to discuss with you about like who he's putting on his team. But it seems to me like he's building the team, a strong, well-rounded team. But and I'm rooting for him. But I'm just, when Layla took it over, I was not optimistic. I knew.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I'm also cautiously optimistic because, again, this was supposed to be. I mean, if you look back at it, like, I know people had a lot of their own hesitancies when Layla Rose took over, but a lot of people were also still excited. They also felt like this was going to be a change for the better. They had their hopes about certain things. They were excited about the inclusivity and, expanding the age range. I mean, that in itself was all uh, buzz and hubbub for people. So I'm hoping that Tom's um promises, as I'm going to still refer to them as, actually deliver, because agreed with you that if it doesn't and this continues to just be all hope and no actual follow through with all of the things that they're talking about changing, so to speak, the system is going to die. I 100% agree. No one's going to care after that. 2 failed attempts. Yeah, sorry. No, that's not going to work.
With Layla though, and this is how you kind of know, and this is why I'm cautiously optimistic with Tom. Like, you look back at the track record, right? So Layla did work for another system before as a state director and failed as a state director. So you can only imagine that going into a bigger avenue, that was what was going to happen on the bigger stage. Tom, however, has been involved in the industry for a long time, and people have, especially, I think Noelia, posted very positively about him. So I'm cautiously optimistic. There is a lot that needs to be done as far as rebuilding trust. They need to get rid of those NDAs,
Yeah.
completely. There is no reason, and I know there's a lot of systems that do the NDA, and I would just, and I'm not saying that makes you less than. I'm just saying maybe I get having a contract to fulfill obligations, but an NDA where people are not allowed to talk about certain things, that's not cool. There's a reason why you're trying to make people not speak. So we need to get rid of
Yeah.
that altogether.
Yeah, it just comes back to the transparency thing. I mean, like you said, there's one thing about having certain requirements and laying that out in a legal binding contract to say, hey, if you don't fulfill X, Y, and Z, you're not going to receive all of your prize package. Like, that's a standard practice with this industry. You don't just get to win and do nothing with it and expect to get all of your prize packages. You have to actually fulfill the title and the roles and responsibilities that come with it. However, physically saying that you cannot talk about, and I'm sure there is a laundry list of topics that Noelia and I forget her name, Uma
Unless
Sophia.
Sophia.
Yeah.
Unless Sophia.
Um, there's probably a laundry list of topics that they're legally not allowed to speak on in any capacity, which is where the problem lies, because you should not have to pick and choose your words or pick and choose certain topics that you can talk about, especially when it's to do with just the outward like aspects of the system, like how the scoring works or how your interview process went. Like, I'm just making up stuff here. I don't know what they're allowed to and not allowed to talk about, but it seems like they're allowed to talk about quite literally nothing. From what we've seen in public appearances and social media, they're not allowed to talk about anything other than, I am the current title holder. That's pretty much what sums up what they're allowed to say. Which that is so beyond me that anyone would willingly sign into that. I would have, if I had seen that contract and saw all the things that I could and couldn't, sorry, you can have it back. Sorry to take that moment away from somebody else, but not doing it. If you didn't find out about it until
Problem
after
is
the fact,
yeah, I was like, the problem when, I know when, Uma Sophia and when Noelia were about to go to Miss USA, these contracts were sent at a point where they had, like I believe from what I heard, they had, like, a 24-hour period to read, seek legal to review the contract and send it back, and it was on a weekend. And if
that's
they didn't
nuts.
submit their contracts back, they weren't allowed to compete for Miss USA. That just happened. I don't remember what country, but a delegate from Miss
Jesus
Universe
Christ.
refused to sign the contract, and they stripped the title of her. 'Cause she wanted to have it, obviously, especially with everything going on, she wanted to have it, like, triple checked.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame her. I mean, if that, and listen, I've been out of the game for quite some time, as most of you know. I've been out of the competitor aspect of this for almost 10 years now. However, especially in today's day and age with just the state of the world that we live in, I would rather see more people stand up for what they believe in, of saying, hey, this is not right. I'm not going to support it. Unfortunately, the person who fulfills my spot that is willing to take on this opportunity does not get their moment in the spotlight. However, since this was not made aware to me until right now, I'm not moving forward with this, with holding this title, and I have to resign. I mean, I just think that that's, I don't understand the difference. I don't see any more harm being done as taking that route as opposed to just following through and then not being able to speak. I don't see that there's any difference in harm level in that.
Agreed. The other thing that was brought up was the elimination of the selection committee. So how do you feel about that?
I'm It's not that I'm 50-50 on the selection committee. I just think that there needs to be a nice balance of who the actual judging committee is. And this kind of is the reason I say that is because with the other part of the biggest change that's coming about, one of the top three things that was discussed is a revived aspect of Miss USA is bringing back current event questions. Now, if you don't live under a rock, you can obviously tell the political climate of this country right now is in hot garbage turmoil for many reasons. I think with bringing back the fact that they're going to ask about political questions, they need to have a very impartial, even judging panel because that in itself opens you up to a whole line of fire for many reasons on both sides of the scale. And I'm not trying to get political here. It is just a statement and a matter of fact that you have to have a judging panel that is open and willing to see all perspectives, both sides, and have no affiliation to one or the other, because that's where we're really going to start to see a
Yeah.
lot of backfire with brain. And I do think that there is discussion needed, and I do think that these particularly tough topics to have conversations about should be talked about more. However, there is a very fine line with creating a lot more of divide than we already have in this country. And honestly, I don't think pageants is more of the place to create that divide. I think there's a lot of other goals that we can accomplish working together, but just with how the state of the world is today, that doesn't really seem possible. So I think that when they're selecting their judging panel, they need to be very cautious about things like that.
Yeah, I'm just happy that the judges will actually supposedly
Agreed, though.
have
Yeah.
more of a
I'm glad that it's
say.
being brought back to a scoring judging panel, but yes, I do think that they should be very particular about who they put on the judging panel for those reasons.
Yeah, and the political question thing, I'm like, I understand, especially as Miss USA, that you are put in situations sometimes, and like we're watching this unfold with like recent current events, and uh it was funny when I was trying to come up with topics. That was one thing that kept coming up was like kind of what's
Mhm.
going on today and title holders either having titles taken away or directors getting fired. Like there's a lot going on with all of that. But I feel like if you are going to allow political questions, which I think are fair for that level, Miss America and Miss USA, I think are fair. However,
100%.
the way you phrase those questions and the type of questions you get, for example,
Mhm.
you can have someone say, okay, like, how do you feel about gun control laws? Do you think they're effective in our country today? And then you'll have someone else, who did you vote for in the last presidential election? That's not fair. Do you remember? I don't remember if
Yes.
it was Miss America or Miss USA, and they straight up asked Hillary Clinton or
It was
Donald Trump
Miss
to one
I
person.
think it was Miss USA. Pretty sure it was
How
Miss
is that?
USA.
That's not fair.
Yeah. I remember there was also a year, I forget what year it was, they asked someone, who was from a very I don't know if I don't wanna say it was gang violence, but just, like, violence in general from, like, a very violent area of their state that they were representing. They asked about gun control, and it was,
Yes.
like and then the girl after her got, like, the most basic political question, and I was like, "Did that just happen?"
You don't remember at the pageant that shall not be named in that group discussion when they asked me, given what's going on in areas like Chicago, how do I feel about gun control laws in our country today and are they
Yes.
effective? And then you had people like, so, like, la la la.
Yeah.
It needs to be consistent across the board. And I
Yeah.
think it needs to be questions where there's not like a divisive answer, it's your opinion on something. So, for example, like, who did you vote for? That's unfair.
Yeah.
You should
Yeah.
not be put in that position because nowadays you cannot say that without consequences from one
Mhm.
side or the other, which is insane that we can't have
Agreed.
civil conversation. Um,
Agreed.
but let's say, for example, you want to talk about, okay, a good question for a political question would be, given all of the political turmoil, how do we recover as a nation to be more united again after everything that's happened? Like, that's a
Yeah.
fair question, not
Ve
like, you know,
100% valid.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's not about, like I really just I think that I think the questions, I agree with you, should be centered on spinning it more positively as much as there is not the events that have gone on in the country in the last not even the last 2 weeks, like in the last week even, are very very negative. However, the news coverage as well and all of the conversations following have just been equally as negative, one side blaming the other side blaming the other, everyone fighting and going at each other for their opinions and their beliefs. I think I agree and I 100% agree with you. I think if the questions are phrased in a positive light of how can we work together despite our differences, or how can we come together after experiencing this, I think that's a more positive way to, and I think honestly that is the purpose of Miss America and Miss USA and their positions, to unite people and to bring attention to topics like this of how we can better our country. I mean, you're Miss America, Miss USA, for God's sake. That's quite literally your title. But I think that is what the focus should be on instead of just driving a further line between left and right.
I agree. That's a great way to put that, and I really hope the questions are tasteful. Um, I hope that everyone gets the same quality of I hope they're really well vetted because a lot of those questions are come up, like, the judges come up with those questions and put them into the bowl, or at least they say
Hmm.
they do. But, the same type of question, if you're gonna ask everyone the same question, put those headphones on those girls.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
I've seen
absolutely.
that, and I'm like, "Ooh."
Yeah,
Um
and be prepared for for still some open backlash after the fact, because I'm sure that will still happen, because that's just today's world. Is nobody, nobody can seem to agree on anything is what it comes down to. But hopefully with these conversations being more public, and being more openly talked about in a positive, respectful manner between both, that we can come to maybe some type of progress. I know that's obviously not even close to what needs to happen in this country as far as reform, on every aspect and every level and every topic. However, I do think it is a start of more open, respectful conversations.
I actually, the morning of when all the stuff went down last week, I watched an interview that was done by Charlemagne the God and Ben Shapiro, and both are on completely separate sides of the political aisle, right? But and it was funny because I just had that conversation with Rich. I was like, wow, like, watching this interview, I was like, the way that they were so respectful, and while a lot of the times they did not agree, they heard each other out and they listened and they talked. And I felt like it was such I was like, wow, that actually really impressed me. That's the first time I've seen something political like this where one didn't run off set or one didn't curse out the other. Like, it was such a
Yeah.
positive. And then here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a crazy world that we live in, and it's honestly just mm,
Exhausting.
I don't yeah, it's really draining getting on social media and just seeing hatefulness from both sides and towards both sides, and just I choose not to get involved on social media about that. You know, I stay Switzerland when it comes to social media and publicly speaking about things like that. Because I mean, my feelings are my feelings, my thoughts are my thoughts, and my beliefs are my beliefs. Am I gonna judge you and tell you you're an awful person for yours? No. That's if I don't agree with it, all right. If that then makes me feel a certain way about you, that's how I perceived it. I'm not going to outwardly be rude and nasty to you. Like that's just not how human beings should treat each other. But I digress. But yeah, I think if we can all just come together as respectful conversations and understanding of how to communicate respectfully towards one another without interrupting or name calling or just all types of negative bashing that goes about. And like you even look back at like old, we may or may not cut this, but even looking back at old presidential elections, like there was a clip
Yeah.
from Obama and Mitt Romney when they were debating each other. It was a very and it was funny because it was actually a clip that mashed it up with a Trump and Biden debate, and it was like so night and day. Like Obama let Mitt Romney speak, politely disagreed with his opinions and what his thoughts were and beliefs were on a certain topic, and then gave his constructive thoughts and of how he feels it should be done with and when it comes to certain policies. And then you cut to the clip of just Biden and Trump screaming at each other. You're a sucker. You're a loser.
Yeah.
Nobody understands this guy. And it's just ridiculous what political climate has come to in this
But
country and just
also
politics in general.
a semi-positive debate that was recent was Tim Walz and JD Vance.
Hmm.
They did
Yeah.
well. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
of course, obviously there's things they don't agree on, and that's fine, but, like, I felt like that was very gentlemanly. Like, I that was pleasantly surprising.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
It's all it takes.
it's just, the problem with this country and what you said, you really hit the nail on the head, was you really need to make sure that you're picking the right panel of judges. For example, if someone has a view that differs from you, you can't score them lower because you disagree.
Yeah. That's where they're going to come into hot water with it. And also, just to be prepared for, I mean, you can word the questions very respectfully as much as you can until the cows come home. You could make it so not to make light of it, but you could make it such a politician's answer where no answer is really given, and somebody will still find a way in the audience to take it as such and run with it and disagree with it and talk badly and talk negatively about you on a public platform as far as like social media goes. So they have to really just be prepared for potential negative backlash because there will be some whenever you bring in politics to it. It's just how this world is, unfortunately, at the moment. And you have to, again, like you said, make sure that the judging panel is unbiased, and if they have their thoughts and feelings that they are not going to let that influence how they score some people based on theirs because that's again not fair, and it kind of again comes back to eliminating the selection committee, and the reason that they are doing that is to have people actually pick based on their thoughts, but it can't be influenced by personal gain, or
Correct.
not personal gain but personal beliefs.
Now, tying this back into like the pageant culture today, because there are a lot of systems that are doing things that are rooted in authenticity and, like transparency. That's something that we're very big on. Um, how do you think that Miss USA can like tie into? Do you think it's possible to? I think it's possible to regain a reputation. I just think it's going to take some time.
Oh yeah. I mean, I definitely think it's possible. Because like we've seen with the Miss America system, we talked about that where it took them quite a while to get back that trust in the pageant world and the pageant community. I mean, like we said on the last episode with Elizabeth, there were several years where nobody really paid attention. Like, yes, it was still a huge accomplishment to be Miss America, but nobody watched it. Nobody really like they were like, two thumbs ups to you, girl. Good job. Nobody really thought the same way that they did 30, 50 years ago about what Miss America really stood for. And now seeing the system kind of come back to life. I mean, they're all over social media still, even a couple weeks following the crowning of their new teen and Miss Crowns and Queens. I can't speak today, so just ignore it. Um, I do think that the same is possible for Miss USA now that there is new leadership involved. And I do think it's going to take the same amount of time for them to also regain the trust. And it's also going to be a matter of if Tom and the rest of his appointed board and team that he's working with will actually follow through on their promises. I think that's going to have a huge, huge factor with it. Everyone is going to be looking at it with a microscope to say, hey, you didn't actually do this like you said you were going to, or hey, you actually did what you said you were going to. And thanks for that. So they're going to be under a microscope at least for the next, I would say, 2 full seasons
Yeah,
minimum.
I agree.
But it is possible for a comeback. It is possible to become back in that positive light like Miss America has. It's just a matter of how they play the narrative and how they actually make progress and make change.
Yeah. Um, let's see. It also talks about contestants being a little bit more outspoken. So, for example, I talked about, I believe it was North Carolina. Now that I did watch the I love Danny Walker. If you're, I probably she's not watching, but if you are, we love you. Um, and she talked a little bit about the lawsuit going on and like how she felt about the whole situation. And it's a hot mess. The best way to deal with that, the first runner up just wants to compete at Miss USA. And I mean, I don't know. Should they give her one of those appointed spots since they don't care anyway? Or I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Um,
I feel like once you try threaten to sue an
yeah.
organization, you probably
That's
should
what I'm
step
thinking. Like,
away.
I don't think it's good for anybody to be involved with each other, contestant with organization, organization with contestant, if this has already gone on to the point that legal counsel is involved. I think once you're at that point, you should gracefully separate from each other. Like I said, either person to organization or organization to person. Y'all should respectfully part ways because it's not going to come back from that. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I understand you felt it was necessary based on what was in your contract to seek legal counsel. That is fully within your right. However, if you have that big of an issue that you couldn't address it with your director at the state level or go about it in a different way where you didn't need to involve legal counsel, I think that's different. But the fact that you now took legal action and pursued that avenue, I think it's time to find maybe a new organization to work with.
Or hobby.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, because in
or get a new
reality,
hobby.
who's gonna want I would be hesitant. I mean,
And who
there's
knows? Maybe she did have conversations with the directors at the state level. I didn't read the whole thing, but I just think that all things considered, it's probably best to not continue down that path if you already have that big of an issue with it.
yeah, and apparently the reason she got disqualified or points deducted, which doesn't make sense in like a the way that they do it at Miss USA is like yes or no, pretty much, not like a
Yeah,
numerical score. So it doesn't make sense when they're like you had points taken off. There are no points to take off.
exactly.
You were just basically disqualified, and the reason she was disqualified was actually not a valid, and she has proof, and it's like a whole thing. Basically,
Yeah,
it said that the vendor that they were using for hair and makeup, she went and got her hair and makeup done and never paid, but she has proof that she did. Like, it's like a whole
yeah. Part ways.
it's time to
Part
go.
ways,
It's
girl.
time to go.
Part ways, girl. Just find somewhere else. Dear God, there's plenty of other systems. Don't even bother. I mean, and that's no shade to her. It's just like that. If they've already gone to those lengths to try to prove you wrong and disqualify you for reasons that were obviously very easily proven to be not true, I don't think this is the system for you. I would not pursue it any further unless you want to continue to pay your lawyer a good amount of money.
So, if you were running Miss USA, I have so many ideas, and these are things that, like, I really hope to also implement within our own organization, but, like, what are some ideas that you have to kind of, like, get Miss USA revamped and revitalized?
Ooh, I have a lot. I think a big one that I would like to see are more highlights on social media about the actual community involvement that these representatives are doing, whether it's state or national. Because I feel like that's something that a lot of times gets overlooked. Like you see a post about it every now and then. You see it in their farewell video. They worked with X, Y, and Z organizations throughout the year. I would like to see more posts about that, especially when it comes to local impact, local community impact. I think that would be a big one to actually show not just people in the pageant industry, but people outside of pageantry, what good can come from it. As far as like community outreach and community impact, I think that would be one thing, one just minor thing that I would say would be implemented. Um, I have a host of other ideas as far as like giving the contestants actual feedback on what each judge said, or how they voted, even if it's a yes or no against them. Like, hey, so and so, like they obviously everybody knows who the judging panel is after the show is done. Why not give them a rundown of the scoring? Like, hey, these people said yes to you in gown. These people said no to you in on-stage question. Like, why not be more transparent to tell them this is what everyone thought? And if you want specific answers of like why they felt that way, then you can email the international office or connect with your state director to act. Like, I think just more transparency up front about like the judging panel and how each person came to fall in their particular placement. I think that in itself will also help with the reputation, not just among pageant viewers, but also pageant title holders. I mean, it's a lot easier for somebody to support an organization they're representing if they feel that they've been upfront, fair, and transparent with them throughout the whole process.
Yes. I also think they need to, like, kind of like how why we brought Sydney Brett on PR, public relations, and getting people out into the
Yep.
public realm. They used to Miss USA used to go on red carpets. She used to be on different news stations. Like it was like a Good Morning America. Like it used to be a really big deal. She would go to movie premieres. So I
Yep.
think creating those contacts, trying to get Miss USA into those important events and seen and that's part of the reason why Sydney Brett came on staff for us. She's doing a phenomenal job with um getting our title holders seen on like the news and in their newspapers and articles and different websites and different appearance opportunities. I think getting them out and seen, especially the national title holder. Like I feel like poor Alma had to do her whole year herself.
Yep.
And that's at Miss USA, that's not fair.
Oh my God, you should have a full freaking team to do that for you. That's not something that you should rely on. It is your job as a title holder to go out and represent the Miss USA organization at those appearances. It should not be your responsibility to also schedule them and to find them. That's what you have. Again, at that level, you have a PR team for a reason. And
Right.
again, this all comes back to what I talked about in the last episode with Elizabeth and kind of also what you said, being Miss USA and being Miss Universe and being Miss Teen USA really used to grab a lot of media attention. We've seen Olivia Culpo go on to become a very successful model and now a TV host, personality, influencer, if you will, as far as like TikTok and social media goes. Same thing with Nia Sanchez. Nia Sanchez is on reality TV. She's been a host for certain red carpet events. They've been involved in the media for a long time now, and it started because of where they were in that position as far as being a USA title holder. So that's what I would like to see more of, and I agree. And I think you also used to see a lot more of their work with Smile Train. That's kind of where I was going with the community outreach too. Used to see so many posts about kids that they worked with, the travel that they were doing to go to those surgeries to actually watch them be performed in person. And I know there's probably still some restrictions around it as far as like COVID and exposures and all of that, because that's still a factor in some places. Um, However, I don't think it needs to completely fizzle out. I think that's something that's such a huge part of the reason behind the crown. And I think that that's something that they should absolutely bring back.
Yeah, 100%. And I think maybe they will. I know that they hired a PR person in their Rolodex of staff, which is important, but there needs to be more than one person doing that. That's a hefty job to be able to get all those opportunities. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
it is who you know. So, like, reach out, meet people, get people who are
100%.
involved in that industry. They used to have like a modeling contract. And I'm not talking about like, I'm talking about like real, not that it's not a real, it is a real agency. But someone
But they hand out contracts to hand out contracts. I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah. A contract is not a pageant prize unless you are like a Miss USA or like a Miss America where you're really trying to build and it should be with a reputable organization.
hmm
Um, so
yep.
that's my 2 cents on that. I think we move on to real talent agencies that are getting people real work and get them exposure at that level.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly at the end of the day what pageantry is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a stepping stone for you to network and further your career in whatever path you want to go in, whether it's, I mean, at this point, it could be any field now. You have so many different, especially now with like the big focus on STEM, women in STEM in the last, I would say, 10 years. Um, that's a huge networking opportunity. There's so many women that compete in pageants that are also in the STEM field that they can connect you with because you're in that industry. Like the possibilities are endless at this point for women in pageantry. And I think that that should be more loudly highlighted in every aspect of how this can be a networking opportunity for pageant women and pageant competitors in general. And I think it needs to be done in a very prominent, positive way and not just like, oh, look at all these things that we can give them. Like, give them actual opportunities. Don't give them a gift bag with their name on it, please. Stop that. That's all fun and games, but like, that's great if you want to do that, but like, make it at that level of Miss USA or Miss America. Give them something meaningful that's going to actually like serve purpose in their life moving forward. They've worked that hard to get to that point. It is an incredible accomplishment in the world of pageantry. It should mean something at the end of the day beyond just the crown and the banner.
I mean, we're able to do royalty trips. There's no reason why they can't do something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take them to an all-inclusive resort. That's a great prize. Like, I'm just more about like the treatment and like healthy treatment of these girls because that's the other thing. What some of these women have dealt with, you know, and again, it's going to take years to rebuild that trust. I do think it's possible. And I'm rooting for Tom. I really am. One of the co-directors of Miss USA is also a director for, I believe, Earth USA, something international. Like she's like several other big pageants, and there are other countries that do that. I know they have a second co-director. I'm just thinking like with the damage control that needs to be done. I'm curious to see how and I'm rooting for her too. I'm curious to see how she juggles everything to make that work.
Yeah. I think in this capacity, like you said, with the damage control that needs to be done, I think this, and I'm not saying that she should be replaced, but I'm just saying like it would make more sense for somebody who is able to dedicate their full time and resources to focusing on bettering the system and to putting the system in a more positive light now, despite recent events in the last several years of past leadership. I think they need to have people that are in place and ready to commit to giving their full time and attention to turning the system around because it does need a full 180.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good point to kind of bring in the point of asking if you have any stories, if you have any thoughts that you want to share on the topic, do send them in. You can DM them to us on Instagram if you want, or you can send them to crownspiracies@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Feel free to send us anything about your thoughts on pageant transparency, the Miss USA system specifically, or maybe a story in general that you have about the time a pageant was super transparent and you appreciate it, or the time that a pageant was super shady and you also did not appreciate that. We'd love to hear it. Anything you've got, send it our way. We'll share it on the pod. If you want to stay anonymous, please make sure that you specify that. But I think as far as the Miss USA system goes, Tom, we're rooting for you, my man. Fingers crossed that your promises deliver, and we're going to be looking out, and hopefully we'll be able to take our girls to go see it in person so we can see it live.
That link so that we can buy our tickets because I do want to. Like, I think everyone but one queen wants to go. I will buy tickets for all the queens. Let's go. Let's do this.
Yep. But yeah, I think that's it. I don't have a crown her moment unless you do this week.
Crown her moment. Let's see. You know who I think deserves a crown her moment? Danny Walker.
Do share.
Danny Walker. And the reason why I say Danny Walker, that girl is tirelessly updating. And that's where I'm getting a majority of my information. And people send her things. And she's so organized and well-spoken. She could post a video for 3 hours and I'd listen to her talk. And I think, and she's so, she's so trustworthy that it's a nice source of information. So crown her to Miss Danny Walker. She deserves that.
Love it.
And
Danny, if you ever want to come on the pod,
please,
let us know. Please. We'd love to have you. As her being a Miss USA former title holder, she has firsthand knowledge of what the system is becoming and has to look forward to. So we'd love to get her perspective on it. But yeah, crown her moment. She also is very true to herself. Like, she's like, these are my opinions. This is what I'm saying, and I'm going to say it with my whole chest. And I love that. Honestly, stick to it, girl. Heck yeah.
Mm, yeah. She gets all her sources and she educates herself also before opening her mouth, which is a big thing because usually
Love
there
that.
are like three sides of every story, person one, person two, and the truth. And she does her research. So well done.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. All right. Well, this has been another episode of Crownspiracies, where every crown has a story. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and share with your Sparkle Squad. And if you've got a story, question, or crownfession, send it in because we'd love to hear from you. But for now, we'll see you next week under the lights. Keep your head high and your crown higher. Bye.
Bye.